Hey everybody, it's me, Angel Benton, and it is time for another edition of Angel Sudsy Recap, where we delve into the world of daytime television and we do a few reality shows on the side. And one of those reality shows that we're doing is Below Deck. I love Below Deck. You know what's funny is that I've watched every single season of Below Deck and Below Deck Med. I just love it. It's so fascinating to me. I learn more and more about the whole yachty culture because that is a world I probably will never be in my life. It's okay though. It's fine. It's fine. Whatever. It is what it is. It's all good. So on this episode of Below Deck, we saw that Captain Lee has pretty much had it. We saw that Nico had it, and Nico's going through a lot, on the show, because this was filmed 1 year after his younger brother died. So if you remember when I did my interview with Kyle last year, that had just happened, and he was like, I'm gonna let Nico grieve. I didn't go into it too much because I don't know if anyone would want anyone talking about it or anything. So I just kept it moving to the next question. So, but now the cat's out of the bag. Not that it wasn't before, but I just it wasn't a topic I felt like speculating on. Because that hadn't aired on the show. It wasn't like up for public consumption yet. So I was like, So, but I mean, I totally respect Kyle because he was like, I'm not going to say anything. He's like, I'm not going to say anything mean about Nico because, he's grieving right now. That's very mature. I thought that was very mature. It's really cool. So, yeah, Nico was going through some stuff and he's really had it with Chris Brown. Had it. And I think now Captain Lee's had it with Chris Brown too, because the way that it ended, last episode, Nico was calling for Chris Brown on the radio and he was just asleep. And he was like, okay. So he goes and wakes him up because the captain gets on the radio and is like, this is the captain and I want to know why I can't hear Chris Brown on the radio either. And because he was passed out. So Nico went and got him up. And then they had this docking experience. Oh my God. So they're on this boat called the Valor, right? Okay. So the Valor is actually an older yacht compared to all of the other yachts that we've had. I'm trying to name them all. There's the Honor. That was the first one. Honor. And then Eros. And Sirocco, obviously, and God, I can't. You know what? I will totally. I can name next week. Next week, I'm going to name all the boats because I know I remember them all. I know I do. So give me a week to think of it. I'll totally remember all the boats' names. But anyways, the Valor is actually an older ship. So there are certain things that don't always work according to plan. Right? Technical difficulties. So the first issue that was like awful was they're trying to leave the dock, and one of the lines is still tied, and they end up hitting the dock, right? So what happens is the guy there's some guy that is now, honestly, as much as I agree with Captain Lee about the deck crew, they're a little bit flaky at times, and I'm being generous. It's the other crew that's kind of giving Captain Lee issues too. Like, there was the first mate that had to go to the hospital, so they ended up needing to replace him, or else they couldn't leave the dock. But that kind of brought to light how bad the deck crew was, because he's like, could I have done it and gotten away with it? Sure. Sorry, but not with this deck crew. I didn't want to risk it with this deck crew. So, makes sense, right? So then what happens is, they had this big issue, but, the guy on the dock, they have a guy on the dock whose job it is to undo all the lines, and he walked right past the line that was still tied. So they were like, okay. And but they never said anything. They didn't say boo. They didn't say, hey, you forgot one. Hey, you, homie, you forgot you forgot that line. Nothing. So Captain Lee was pissed. He was fucking pissed, right? And Nico was pissed too. And Chris Brown was like, well, it wasn't my fault. It was that guy's fault. It wasn't us. But he was standing there with Baker, and Baker was like, no, it was totally all of our fault because we should have said something. And yeah, so she owned it. So good for her. She did great. You know. And so then after that, they were, what was it? Was it when they were docking that they hit the dock? No, it wasn't, because they had some other kind of issue. Oh, okay. So they're coming so that was their first disastrous leaving of the dock. Then when they're coming back to the dock, they lose one of the thrusters. That was the technical difficulties I was talking about like 5 seconds ago. Okay, so they lose one of the thrusters, and they weren't sure what to do. So Captain Lee called out that a thruster is down, and people are, and the chef, now this is, I'm not going to lie, the chef, I think his name is Matt. He really was super hot in this moment because he just got out of the kitchen, he got on the deck, and he started pulling in the lines himself. I was like, all right, you better get it. So, and Nico was like, how is it that the chef comes out and he is more of a help on the deck than my deck crew? Well, he's kind of got a point there. A little bit. But that was super hot. Like, I thought he was major hot for that. I was like, okay, Matt. Okay, go Canada. All right. Okay. So, all of that was going on. And Bruno. With Bruno, with this, because, there are some episodes where he's doing awful. Like 2 episodes ago, he was awful. Last episode, he did so much better. And he got, praised, and he was like, he's doing a lot better. But this week, it was back and forth this week. On the one hand, he was getting, kudos for stepping up, right, and learning things, But then on the other hand, like, Kate asked him if he could just lead a conga line with the ladies. He was like, I'm tired. I've just been working all day. Which is the absolute worst thing you can say to a chief stewardess ever, because that chief stewardess is always working too. And when she walks by and sees him just sitting there, and he's like, just because I'm sitting here now doesn't mean I don't work 18 hours a day. She's like, yeah, it doesn't mean that you're not doing nothing. It just means you're not doing much. Oh my God. Kate did have some good lines this past week. She really did. She was a little bit, I don't want to say mean girls-ish, but she was a little bit hazy. Like, she hazed Jen a little bit. But that was just because I think, Jen got a little bit lippy with how she feels that she's being maligned and mistreated and blah, blah, blah. But, I mean, isn't that the plight of the third stew? Isn't the third stew always the most work and all that stuff? Because A, they need to learn more, and B, let's look at the past seasons of the show. Every third stewardess has been this way. Sam, season 1, was the absolute worst. She was awful. Actually, no, Amy wasn't that bad of a third stew, because she ended up becoming a second stew, so she wasn't that bad. Lauren, even though she wasn't that bad of a third stew either, she still had issues, right? God, Rocky, remember Rocky? So, yeah. Oh my God, and Sierra. Oh my God, I almost forgot about Sierra. Oh, she was a mess. Okay, so it is a difficult life, and you signed up for it, so suck it up, Buttercup. Here's the thing. It really came out this past season on Twitter, because, last week, as that fight exploded onto Twitter between Captain Lee and Chris Brown, it came out that really that Captain Lee doesn't have any say in who's hiring who. That it's really all production. So I think that my gut feeling was spot on in terms of they're specifically casting awful people on purpose for good television, right? But it's getting to the point now where it's not good TV anymore. Like, it's really sad. And if you think about it, these people, this is reality television. This isn't like some scripted show. This is a reality show that's actually happening. And when you're on a boat like that in the ocean, like, people's lives are at stake. Like, I mean, it's kind of a serious job, especially on the deckhands. Like, really, the stewardesses aren't quite as serious as the deckhands, but they're always working. So I don't know. It just seems like whenever someone is cast that has no idea what they're doing, and to cast the entire crew like that. Anyways, I do want to say thank you so much for logging on today. I do appreciate it. Please feel free to follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Angel Benton. You can hashtag Below Deck to talk Below Deck, or you can also hashtag Days to talk Days of Our Lives. I'm doing that tomorrow. And you can hit that subscribe button on my YouTube channel to get my YouTube videos sent to your email inbox every single day. All right, everyone, have a wonderful day. Peace out. Wubba, wubba, wubba.